Okay, let's review through the ovarian cycle that we went through today. Now the ovarian cycle we know has 3 phases. We have the follicular phase, we have the ovulatory phase, and then we have the luteal phase. Now, the follicular phase. This phase occurs from the first day of menstruation, and this goes to approximately day 12 or 14 of the menstrual cycle. The ovulatory phase. This begins when estrogen peaks, and it ends with the release of the oocyte, or better known as ovulation. The luteal phase, this begins with after ovulation. And then this lasts approximately 14 days. All right, during our follicular phase, remember during this phase we have the ovary, and remember we have about 4 to 8 of those follicles that are trying to develop. The anterior pituitary gland is secreting the LH and the FSH to assist with this process. Okay? While these are being secreted, these Graafian follicles are maturing. As they are maturing, each one is producing estrogen. And then remember we talked about our winner. So with that, one of them magically matures to full maturity, and it quote unquote, remember, wins the race. The winner produces a high amount of estrogen. This high amount of estrogen is what suppresses all of these other Graafian follicles from being produced as well. This estrogen, this large production of estrogen, then suppresses FSH. And when you think about that, that makes sense because we don't need any more follicles stimulated anymore. We need to actually move to the next phase of prepping for ovulation. So with this high amount of estrogen being produced, it suppresses FSH and it actually increases our LH, which is our luteinizing hormone. This then causes, remember our luteinizing is our letting go, right? Hormone. So this then causes us to enter into the ovulatory phase. And here we are again. So now we're going to start the ovulatory phase. Ovulatory phase, it begins when estrogen peaks. The winner is identified at this point, and we're now going to begin the process of letting go. This is the shortest phase of the cycle. Only lasts a couple days. And during this phase, the winner, we're going to pretend this is our winner, our Graafian follicle, our winner, it's producing large amounts of estrogen, and that is suppressing the FSH and the LH. And this LH surges during this time, causes the release. We then enter into the luteal phase. The luteal phase, as I said before, begins after ovulation, lasts approximately 14 days. During this phase, we need to think of that ovary and where that Graafian follicle was developed and then released. It actually releases an oocyte, right? So we have the egg that is released from this area. And I remember I wanted you to kind of think of this area as a scab. The medical term for this scab is corpus luteum. And, you know, we really would think, okay, all our focus should be on this egg right now, but really this little corpus luteum plays an important role as well. Because what it does is it actually starts to produce progesterone to assist in promoting and maintaining a pregnancy. Remember, the body is in the mode of, I want to become pregnant every month. It's trying. All right, and that's where the birth control options that you guys are going to review come into play and interfere with this process. But progesterone, this is kind of the key. So, progesterone's being produced by this corpus luteum in large amounts, and it's going to do this until the placenta is mature enough and can take over this process. But we aren't quite that far yet. So, egg is released. This is referred to as the oocyte. The area where the egg was released from, remember that scabbed, or you can kind of think of wounded area, is referred to as a corpus luteum, and it is producing large amounts of progesterone. All right, so we have an egg that is released during this phase. Now, remember, we come to our two options, baby or no baby. If fertilization takes place, the corpus luteum, we know, is producing that progesterone, right? And the other thing, it does produce also some estrogen to promote growth of the lining and to make a nice welcoming area for the fertilized egg. If there is no baby, no pregnancy that occurs, the corpus luteum, it then degenerates. And with that degeneration, because we knew that it was producing progesterone, but the progesterone is no longer needed. So that corpus luteum, it degenerates, which causes a decrease in progesterone levels. We then come back and begin the process of menstruation with that first day of the menstrual cycle again. A couple other things that I'm not necessarily having you focus on, but if there is a baby, this fertilized egg or this zygote, this then starts to produce some hormones of its own also. And I know every time I tell this story, I could tell it just a little bit different, but this is kind of the basics. And this is kind of another example of how I've kind of color-coded it, highlighted my hormones, and assist in the process of storytelling the ovarian cycle. I don't know if you can see that very well, but we have the follicular phase, ovulatory phase, and the luteal phase. First day of menstruation to almost midway for a couple days. The luteal phase is the last half. On top of this, we are then going to add in the endometrial component. And you can see that these just kind of nicely layer together, and they all are intertwined. All right, that's my video on the complicated ovarian cycle, and like I said, we will go over this again in class as well to assist you in getting this down and understanding it fully. So make sure you bring your questions with you on Friday.